Hi, welcome to the Community Table, a new podcast hosted by me, Heather Elder of Heather Elder Represents,
and me, Kelly Montez of Apostrophe.
If you've been in the industry for a while, you might remember the original Community Table series I co-hosted with Kate Chase from 2012 to 2017. It was a space for producers, creatives, and industry leaders to gather and talk openly about the work, the challenges, and the changes we were all navigating at the time.
And in 2025, there's no shortage of things to talk about, from AI and evolving client relationships to the way content is being created.
That's why we decided to bring the Community Table back, but this time as a podcast. Kelly and I will co-host, reflecting on the expanding conversations we're having every day with our artists, producers, and creatives shaping what comes next. Whether you're a seasoned producer, a curious creative, or just someone trying to figure out how to thrive in this changing landscape, there's always room at the table.
Hello all, today is Wednesday, March 4th, 2026, and welcome to a special episode of Community Table. Today we're focusing on a topic that is moving very quickly in our industry, artificial intelligence. Rather than rushing to conclusions, our goal today is to slow the conversation down and create a space to listen. We've invited a group of art producers to join us because they're often at the center of these shifts, navigating new tools, questions from clients, and evolving expectations around usage and terms in real time.
This conversation isn't about declaring AI good or bad or stifling innovation. It's about hearing what people are actually experiencing in the work right now so we can better understand where we are and where we might be headed.
My name is Michael Baca. I'm a art director, creative lead. I will say I'm currently working as a contractor at Arc'teryx, previously Airbnb and Google. So I've seen a lot of the kind of shifting and trying to transform these companies using the AI tools. So this is obviously a topic that's super close to everything that I do and all of us do.
I'm Julie Maxim. I'm a senior producer at Omnicom Productions. It's funny because AI, it felt like it was kind of in the back and it was like in the woods, and it's slowly starting to creep out of the woods, and it's like all of a sudden it's here and I'm dealing with it like on a daily basis. So I think it's important to have these conversations.
Hi, I'm Sarah Rowe. I'm a freelance senior producer over at Omnicom as well. And I ditto that. It was, it's here. It's here and it's here to stay. And it's going to take on various shapes and forms.
Julie, I'll kick this question to start to you. From where you sit inside the agency, where is AI actually showing up?
I mean, I think I first started seeing AI in comps. So when the creatives sell ideas to the client, they're going to come up with ad labs and comps. And it used to be like back in the day, it was sketches. Remember, we would hire like someone to draw pencils and then he would sell that through. And then it became more swipe. And then it became stock and swipe. And maybe someone was drawing and, anything to get these concepts sold through to the client. But now AI is the comp, which is great. I mean, creatively, it's Michael can talk to this more. It's actually amazing, how they can get these ideas and these creative concepts and they become these gorgeous AI pieces that we can sell through to the client and get jobs like awarded and get jobs started and get the work streams going. But now it's gone on to this new world where I'm getting a lot of jobs where it's like, we want to see this bid 5 different ways Sunday. So like, we want to see it as an AI job. We want to see it as a photo job, half photo, half AI, half CG, half AI, some photo. Like they want us to bid it all these different ways and see how long it'll take and what the cost difference is. And then they're starting to want us to show what it would be to do AI in-house. So we're seeing a lot more of that. So it's like we're creating these bid systems and these like Excel documents that show it's going to cost this much for option 1, option 2, option 3. And these are all ballparks, and these are all us estimating everything. This is even before we're talking to photographers, vendors, CG. Like this is like way in the beginning. So this is when we're scoping the job and how we're going to do the job. And then in addition to doing that bidding and doing the ballparking, we're also talking to legal and getting comfort level of legal, comfort level with the clients and what we have to do on that end, because it's like two parts. I mean, and it's interesting because Sarah, we've been doing a lot of this recently, and we're finding out there's not a huge cost difference. It's maybe like 20, 25% in cost difference if you do outside AI versus like a photo shoot.
We're seeing like a 25 to 30% difference. I would say that in my calendars, maybe I'm able to shave a month off because you're using AI in the beginning and you're using AI all the way through. Mm-hmm. So you're not setting up a photo shoot. You're not having a casting. You're not, all the things. We still are paying the proper fees though to SAG and all of those particular areas. If we are taking jobs away from human beings, we have to pay the, SAG rules and regulation fees. And I think what we're also really finding, which I think is really great and should be hopeful for our industry in terms of the people in this room, is you need a producer. You absolutely need a producer, whether you're taking it all in-house or going out of house, to be the in-between, just as if you were doing a regular photo shoot. So you're not wiping away the need for producers. You're definitely not wiping away the need for art directors, because in some of the, the waves that we've been speccing it out, art directors who know how to do AI well can carry much more of the job than you would with an outside vendor.
Michael, what about you? Because you sit in this creative producer, art director role. How are you using AI today in your workflows?
As an art director and a creator, I'm really focusing on just staying on top of the tools, doing everything in my power to integrate the tools into my creative process. But I'm seeing that in the sense of strictly prototyping, comping, mocks, and not delivery. At least where I'm at with, kind of learning the tools myself and seeing what they output, and kind of some of the clients that I've been working for, their expectations for quality, I just haven't seen AI, or at least anything that I've made with AI, get remotely close to the fidelity that they need in their deliverables. But that's not to say that the tools don't help us sell ideas faster, create bigger and more accurate ideas that better articulate the vision. So I think the tools are incredibly powerful. They're allowing us to explore more, discover more, and get stuff made that is closer to the original vision, intent, and hopefully the brief. But just in terms of like replacing photo shoots, I have seen some very compelling things where like, oh, that you could have told me that was a live action commercial, and I would have believed it maybe on a small screen. I think that's really exciting. I'm just still kind of on the fence and not fully convinced about delivering AI products as final go-to-market assets.
It almost sounds as though these AI tools are providing clarity in the conversation at the concepting stage.
Yes, but no. I mean, they're at their concepting stage, and then we're taking them all the way to final. No matter how much we are using AI right now to get to our end result, there's still a ton of people who need to make the AI happen. And it's very clear that we still need so many people to take product that needs to go from point A to point B to point C. And you still need a project manager, a producer, an art director, an account executive, and a client, and all of those things that go along with it. So it's more about how do we get, I think, our artists on a roll of how do you make change with this new technology that once again has been put in front of you, that so much of it could be an artist who's prompting, and people are going to need people who can prompt the right way, because an art director who may be expected to go and make all these prompts so they can make all these comps only get things halfway, where a prompting artist, a specialist in these areas, speaking, writing it in a precise way is what gets the art out. You almost need an artist to be that artist. So now photographers, let's say, instead of it analog, now it's digital, then it was this, now it's going to be AI. You are still relevant. Let's figure out how you're relevant in the growth of where we're going.
There are many, many people out there who still feel like, well, I'm never going to use AI. I'm a lifestyle artist, or I use natural light, or I photo, or I'm just like not interested. So therefore I don't need it. And I am absolutely not here advocating for AI at all. I'm just here to say it definitely is present and you have to understand it, even if it means you're going to sell against it. Because I've been on calls where I fully have a lifestyle artist who's being bid for a job where they're creating AI backgrounds. And if he didn't understand how that worked and what the lighting would need and the composition and all the things of how that would all get combined, he wouldn't have been a consideration for that.
Julie, are you getting any pressure from clients that at the jump are saying, I don't even want to entertain a shoot. I really feel like I should be able to do this in AI. And because that is something that I'm hearing both from brand and agency clients, is that there's like, we need to save the magic number that I keep hearing is 30% on costs this year. And so first and foremost, I need to know, can you do it with AI?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely hearing that. I had this project that came up and the client didn't even want to talk about a photo shoot. And I was trying to explain to them, you can actually do a photo shoot for almost the same amount of money as AI. And you can actually own so much more. If you are doing AI, it's almost like these one-offs because it's so involved to make just one AI image that if you do a photo shoot, you can do all these secondary, you can do all this outtake.
And maybe they're coming to the table with these expectations from the hype.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think that it's also about forcing adoption, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to age myself, but I remember the first .com boom and the brick and mortar stores that weren't moving to an online strategy and how that affected them. And I keep hearing that in articles of like learning the lesson that you have to jump on the train of something. Michael, do you ever think that that's the case internally when you're talking with clients? That you're like trying to push that needle and push the learning curve for everyone internally?
Yes. Yeah, I'm thinking of a specific example. I had a client that was really pushing AI. And we were doing a $500,000+ photo shoot. And he wasn't advocating for the replacement of that photo shoot to be AI, but he wanted as much AI integration in the post process as possible. We shot at this beautiful location and he wanted to wipe out the location and make it something else, or take what was seen outside of those windows and make it be at a airport or at, a different city or whatever. And that was fine. And we actually got to a place with him where we're like, all right, we had to go through the company's like ethical policy about like, what can we actually use, and really get it reviewed and make sure that it wasn't, there were no landmarks that the model was pulling from. But it definitely fell into the category of forced adoption. And I think ultimately it was actually a really good learning point for our retouching team to see how they could tastefully bring in AI, use some AI generated composited backgrounds, and have the image still feel like it was shot on a set. There's that middle ground of a client that wants to integrate it. But then I think there's going to be a big space for brands, probably even AI brands and tech brands that feel like they should be on the top of the curve of AI, but that want to just go back and buy a big crew photo shoot on the ground in person, because human connection is made. I mean, we all know the benefits of being on set with each other. It's like buying vinyl. Like MP3s are everywhere. You can get them. They're lower quality. They still sound good. They're convincing to so many. But if you go buy vinyl and listen to it at home, there's something kind of indescribable about that. And it's a little bit more bespoke and a little bit more expensive at times, but it's totally worth it. And if you're in it, you're in it. But my question to the group, kind of coming off this whole thing, is if everyone is pushing AI so hard, why is OpenAI, the biggest AI company in the world, shooting analog out of home campaigns with Samuel Bradley? That to me is like, look at them.
I mean, there's also like I think they're trying to get to the younger crowd too. Like there's such a pushback with AI. I feel like in my kids in college generation, like, and the clients had even brought some clients had brought this up, like the pushback when they get caught using AI or they get the call outs using AI, like it can have such a negative, reaction in so many ways.
Well, storytelling is
Yeah.
human led,
Right.
at least on our side of things, right? Not talking about the college students, but like it is human led and it will always be.
Mhm.
And there is going to be this counter balance to AI. And it'll be really interesting. And it's hopeful, I think, to see kind of what grows out of that. Kelly and I had a conversation on a podcast the other day with another rep who was talking about some of the artists she represents that do like actual art and handcrafted things that were like really busy right now because people were looking for that kind of real authentic, and I know that word is very overused, but approach to their brand. So it will be interesting. I am really curious about legal and the approved tools. Michael, you mentioned something earlier about, I know your preference is not to deliver the work in AI, but you said something about the fidelity of the images. So it's a bit of a two-part question, but like, are you not using certain tools because legal doesn't let you? I know at Omnicom there are only specific approved tools. So I'm kind of interested in hearing how legal plays into the type of tools that are being used.
Yeah, it is interesting being at another company that I was just at. They had very limited set of tools available to them because again, it's proprietary information, and if we're just using the tools willy-nilly, we're putting their proprietary information in these models that are learning off of that. And so there's been a lot of restrictions. And in that case, I wanted to use more tools to get stuff done, but we were very limited with what was approved. So that's the legal kind of barriers that we're going through. And I think these companies are just all in the position right now where they're trying to figure out and vet and create partnerships and collaborations with the AI companies to make sure that their tool is compliant and safe and can work in the capacity that the company needs it to.
How about at Omnicom?
Each of our clients have different MSAs and programs they're allowed to use, and everything that we use has to be garden walled. Then there's, there are a ton, like, I don't want to say out here, but there are a ton that we know that we're allowed to use. It's specific for each client. We also have a ton that our internal AI departments use, and they're approved and approved by legal, and a lot of them are approved by most of our clients' MSAs, hence why we have them in-house. But everything's garden walled, and even if we go outside to an AI vendor, they have certain tools that you've used and that we've said, okay, we can use, and you've let us know that it's garden walled and show us the protection and have all that documentation ready of what you use and how you use the programs and all of that. That's very helpful. And I think that teams that, understand how and work with AI programs understand how clients need these things to be protected and are getting the type of equipment in-house to offer them to their clients. What's interesting? We keep talking about, how AI is affecting a lot of our photographers and things like that. But in other sense, they're also growing a lot of the CGI teams that you represent, right? So in one way, some of your photographers are maybe not getting as much work or being passed over, or also just being asked to partner with these teams.
Mhm.
Like, I always want to bring the positive to it as well, is in everything we're talking about, there's solutions for your photographers to figure out how to make more money moving forward, partnering up with specific teams and marketing yourself as that.
To be fair, there is a lot of fear because there's this idea that, the pipeline is shrinking in terms of how much can go through it, to the same people who, and I don't mean the same artists over and over, I just mean the same creative solutions, right? Like it used to be that people like Kelly and I were the only type of people that you would reach out to if you had to solve a creative problem. You'd call a rep. Well, that has just, completely diluted over the years. And now with AI, I think a lot of people are feeling like it's diluting even more in terms of your options of who can solve that creative challenge. And I think people are scared.
I think something else that I've heard both from you and from Julie, and I'm very curious to understand it. And I think that any photographer or rep that's listening to this podcast would be interested in knowing. You keep saying your internal AI teams. And I have a feeling that I don't even realize. It's kind of like when agencies started opening up photo studios, right? Like all of a sudden I turned around and I'm like, oh, I'm bidding against the agency's production company and the agency's internal resources. My retouching that I'm bidding against is bidding against the internal resources. So I'm wondering if you would feel comfortable telling us, what do those teams consist of? What are they and what are they capable of? And how are we potentially competing against them? Julie, do you want to kick that off?
Yeah, I mean, at a high level, there are internal teams that we have in place that I think it's all kind of starting to be figured out, right? Like, it's kind of the teams that creatives would go to when they needed to do comping, and if they weren't as savvy with AI language and prompting, and didn't know the programs as well, they would kind of go to these like internal teams that would help them do comps, and and that was kind of how it was used. But now it's starting to shift. Like we're starting to see art directors who can actually are really interested in AI, are really good with AI, and almost can take a project. I have a project that almost like an art director can do the whole thing. And then they're just kind of sidebarring with these like internal AI. They're almost like these gurus, these guys that are just like guys and women that are just, they are so on top of it. They're like watching what's happening with AI. They're seeing how much is changing. They're seeing what's coming out. And they're almost like the in-house experts. So those experts can do the AI, but they also can help the art directors. So like one team, I have the experts helping the art director, and we're going to see it through. And then another team, like the art director isn't as familiar with AI, so the experts are doing more of it. And it's literally like these tiny little departments that have just like really organic, that have just kind of evolved, that are changing and shifting. And, but there may be a day, I mean, I hate to say it, but like, you could have, art directors like in 5 years that like a photo shoot, like, what do you mean? I'm just going to do it all in AI, because they've got the expertise, they have the tools, everything's legally approved, it's all internal, it's a walled garden. And it's like, there may be a day where some art directors, they're seeing the whole thing through from comp, like from brief to comp to execution to seeing it on a website, and it's like they don't even use an outside vendor. Like, so there's this interesting photographer that she's a photographer, but she's also taken the prompting to like a photographer's point of view. So she's kind of bringing it to this whole level that is so unique and gorgeous and beautiful. And like, she's making it her own. And I think she's kind of promoting herself as an AI creator. And I think they can almost become the prompt masters, and that they use their own photography, their own libraries, whatever's available to them, to create their own AI, putting in details that only they know, like what lens, a Hasselblad, or, a Tri-X, like all these things that only a photographer may know, that they can create this really cool AI that they're part of the process.
I'm curious now, and Michael, I don't know where you sit in the contract space, so tell me if this is an appropriate question or not for you. But when you are looking now to hire artists, do you have a conversation about whether or not the images can be used within these AI tools? Are you asking them for derivative rights so that you can train a model or just even use the post-production tools, a retouching tool on the back end to help make the process smoother?
Generally, what I've seen is people are, and I think this comes from just from a lack of education and knowledge because it's so new, but people do not want their work available to be trained on. At least from what I've seen creatively, kind of talking to photographers on the back end, it's like, no, these are for you guys to do what you need with them, but nothing more.
We pay additional fees. We have it in our contracts. If we're going to do AI or ask permission, then we're going to give you money. And you tell us what that estimate is, and we'll tell you if we can pay it or not or negotiate. I mean, it's like getting a source file. If you're like, we may be like, listen, we're not going to use the people because the talent, we have to do the same thing. So we could say, okay, this talent it's going to cost too much. So instead of the talent images, just your background plates. We want to know if we can use your background plates in, in AI so that we can, do something with it later on. Well, that's fine. And you may want to charge me an extra $50,000 for that. And that's what we will bring to the client.
I have two requests that I am asking of clients. There's the request of like, I don't want our artist images being used to train your model, your GPT for your brand or whatever it might be, or for your agency. I don't want that. And if you're going to do that, there needs to be fees associated with that.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also understand that in the post-production process, there are AI tools as well that people are using for retouching, or maybe you're integrating with CGI, any of that. And so then my request goes like, because like you said, I've had a number of projects where it's like, we're bringing in AI backgrounds or whatever it might be. And I know that in the post-production process, AI is going to be utilized. And I'm excited for that. I've gained time on my photo shoots because the post-production process has gone smoother. But my request is that those images be put into a closed garden. But how do I know that that's going to happen?
Because we're legally bound to it and we're not. And then if it's not, then you can sue. I mean, like, it's the same thing as if we used your images and we didn't pay for it.
Yeah, but that's a bit more trackable, right? There are systems and companies and ways to track an image out in the world. There is nothing now that we can track an image that has been learned from.
An agency wants their artwork garden walled more than you do. Because their client, they're legal. There's so much more that my client can get sued for legalese that, they're not taking that chance. We are so strict. We're so protective. We're beyond. And I would say out of the Omnicom ladies who have come from the FCB world, there's such knowledge and such care about the photographers and this transition, especially in the pharmaceutical world, that I believe we are fighting for our artists and helping them into the future of this in the best way we can, because it's a reality for us. And we behind the scenes are fighting for fairness, for legal, for the right paperwork, for the right spec forms for you in this new AI transition.
There are a lot of more people out there who just don't know. And so for those people who are listening today, these conversations are so important because even though you may be showing up in a way that, you're proud of as an agency or a holding company, there are so many that just don't know what they don't know yet. And there are so many artists who don't know the questions to ask. I mean, Michael, where you've been, do you find that there's such care and attention to the legalities and the contracts and the paperwork and all of that as well? Or do you find people are still learning?
I would say the latter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've find people are still learning and trying to understand.
The best thing, and I think the photo world can do, like AMP should have either people like us on here for discussions about programs and how we do it, or just AI 101. Like that is how we spread the word, right? You're saying like, how do we educate? Just as like we educate our junior producers out there, they've got to be interested in learning as well as we have to be interested in teaching.
I agree. We're trying to work really hard on that education. I think one of the things that I have heard recently, I was on a phone call with about 8 to 10 art producers in the Bay Area, and they were saying that they're freelance. San Francisco, I always feel like it's such a good indicator of what's going to happen to the rest of the country, and that they're concerned about advocacy because they're worried they won't get hired again because it is unpopular. And Michael, maybe you can speak to this. It's unpopular in the C-suite to hear any resistance. Most brands are like, we want to own it all. We need to have it for archival purposes. We don't want to have to track usage. We just want to own it all. And for a producer or an art director that says like, well, wait a second, this person doesn't want to do that, but they're right for this campaign, this, that, and the other reason, there's insecurity around having that advocacy.
I mean, if they want to own it, they got to pay for it.
Yeah.
Broadcast is work for hire, right? So I think maybe some producers when they because they're kind of doing both, so clients as well assume, oh well, why don't we own this? And you have to explain the models and usage and all that kind of thing. And it's like, well, if you want to own it, you're gonna have to pay broadcast prices.
Yeah.
Or come up with some an estimate that says, this is what 2-year use is. This is what 4-year usage looks like. This is what 6-year usage looks like. And this is what a buyout looks like.
And I would add to that, because this is such an important conversation, that it's not just educating the client who is asking for that, but it's also educating the artist who may or may not know that they can do that yet.
It also just depends on the photography. Like, if you have a ton of models, there's just no way you can buy it out. And that's just such an easy thing to explain. But like, if it's a still life of flowers on a table with a can of an energy drink that is owned by the client, yeah, they should kind of own that.
Well, and also, where else are they going to use it? Your photographer.
Where else are they going to use it? Yeah.
If you are granting work for hire and you're not getting paid a decent rate for it, of course, depending on what you're shooting, I understand that. The difference now is the future value of that imagery versus you took a library of images or a bunch of shots that you're selling for work for hire, and only those shots can be used. Now you can take those and learn from them and create a whole new brand campaign, a whole new different type of look and imagery, so that future value is much greater with work for hire now with the AI tools that just didn't exist before.
If clients are not amenable to the terms, you could negotiate all you want, but then and I've been on this side, oh, they said no, we're not doing full buyout, we're not hiring them, we have 15 other people in line. And I think that's just a reality of the macroeconomics about what's going on. You guys have been on LinkedIn. There's a level of desperation, honestly, that is, people need jobs. A lot of people are not getting them. The photographers that are working, and pretty much everybody else is really having a hard time making it work.
It's true.
So the gal that's working, they're not amenable to a full buyout. They don't want to put their imagery in AI training. There's 15 people below them that will. And companies also, at least some of the ones I've been at, they don't want to pay. They don't want to pay those high rates anyways. So it's actually kind of a blessing for them to say no, and it gives them reason to just go further down the list. And that's just what that is.
But what about my crew? What about the caterer? What about the driver? What about all those crews that aren't going to get that opportunity to potentially be on set for the assets that we may be creating using AI tools? there still needs to be efficiencies. There still needs to be money saved. But how do you even quantify that? Is giving, a PA $50 more a day, like, okay, versus that entire day rate?
Honestly, if you came to me with that, I would be like, you know what? That's their choice and their career. Being an art producer isn't like a ton of money. For many years we haven't been treated fairly as art directors and some other people, but we love what we do. I mean, the facts are the facts. The industry is changing. You have to be able to adjust and grow with it, and say, like, a grip may not get as much work in the next 15 years, and I feel bad because I have a lot of friends who are grips. But I'm not gonna sit here and not tell you the truth about what's happening. Embrace AI, understand AI. You wanna, like, still be a traditional art director, still be a traditional photographer, but you have to embrace what we don't know.
I fully feel that. Sorry. I mean, it's on all of us in the way that just being a human is all about taking in what you can to be better each day. And it's the same thing in the industry. It's our responsibility to either integrate and stay with it and be on top and let it become part of our modern reality and adjust and adapt, or not. A PA that makes their rate, they end up working less days a year. What are they going to do in those days? I mean, these tools are all about being more efficient and saving time ultimately. Like, I think that's the goal. So what do we do with our extra time? And I'm grappling with that. And I think everybody is.
I'm looking across the industry and seeing producers that have been in-house at agencies and in-house at brands and have always been our advocates losing their jobs, some after 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And I like to believe that work is going to just change, and that the best of us will be flexible, to your point, Michael and Zari, of like learning new ideas, new ways of thinking, new software. But then there's this part of me that lives in fear of, like, corporations want to cut costs and they cut human capital and and bring in more agentic AI. And then those people don't have any money to put back into the economy. So corporate profits go down, and then they cut the human workforce again and bring in more agentic AI.
We just saw 4,000 people from Block lose their job overnight over Jack Dorsey's threat of AI, or maybe not threat, but his push of AI. 4,000 really talented, brilliant, creative, strategic people. They're going to either get new jobs. A lot of them might get new jobs. A lot of them might not. I'm keeping a close eye on as many of those 4,000 people as I can to see what they do, because they're going to react to this from a place that's personal. They were affected, their families, their finances, everything took a hit. And what that output is, I think, will be kind of a really great large sample example of what the AI doom is creating in reality in the market. Are more little design shops going to be open? Is the contractor and freelance market going to be booming? Is there, who knows? There's going to be innovation coming from that, because people are smart. They're going to figure it out. And they're not just going to sit and be like, well, my job was lost to AI.
Michael, to your point, I also believe, because of the merger that we just went through and how thousands of people will be laid off and thousands more will be laid off, because once they go to return to office or find positions, there's 3 people where it's only needs to be 1 now, all of that. I, like many other, I think, really great creatives who are doing great work out there and are being nominated and awarded and recognized, are at the point in their lives where maybe they don't have enough money, or maybe they do, but they don't give a shit anymore. And they're like, we're going to take this and start our own little shop and do our own little thing and see what we can do. I definitely feel that because of this, we're going to see more of that, which is great. I mean, that's what we want, that you love that. That's like, it's booming. That's where, like, stuff comes out of. But I also feel like we should be paying it in, like, not as much as AI right now, but pay attention to the way that these agencies are getting bought up and holding companies are taking over. and looking at that a little bit more and understanding those structures and how you can fit in to be a big help in what they're doing. Maybe it's not worrying about AI as much as, where can you be helpful, working with these sub teams that these agencies are making, because just because we're using, like, let's say an in-house studio, that doesn't mean that in-house studio has all the capabilities and is still going out to use some of those capabilities. So I think it's now like, how do we look at these big holding company structures and really understand who's doing the work in it so that you're not, like you were saying, who you're competing against, but also how can I help them? How can I be that team's bread and butter now? Because I know that my art buyer, my art director are going to be told to go to them. So let me be them's friends. Like there's a lot that I think, again, someone who doesn't get discouraged and puts their mind to it and says, listen, back in the day, you had to do all your marketing, right? You had to do promos. Who was I going to send those promos to? How do I make a targeting promo, block of emails? Same thing with internal agencies that you can do. Who are the real teams in there now I can get into? Where can I get into so I can show what, Pop and Andy Glass do together as a team and how we can make it more efficient, and work with your internal teams. Like, so I think that there's always a way to look at it and say, okay, shit's hitting the fan over here, but I'm going to figure out how to carve my way in here. And I think it's the same for me as a freelancer, right? If they don't need me anymore, what am I doing? Well, honestly, my first thought of, if I don't have an agency art producer position, is I'd actually like to maybe look into developing an AI producer position. Do I go to an external shop? Do I go to these bigger corporations? Do I go client side and say, and say, you may need this? And then how do I reinvent myself to still stay in the know?
This has been amazing. I've learned so much. I want to leave today thinking more about the people who were laid off, not in terms of, definitely being empathetic to that situation, but curious with what they're going to do. I hadn't thought about that in terms of this enormous block of people out there, and to what everyone else is talking about, how creative and forward thinking and amazing they all are. It's going to be really interesting to see where they head and what they accomplish.
I love that perspective, because I do think that as humans, we find value in ourselves and the work that we do. And so what new shall we all create together?
Thanks for joining us at the community table. Bringing this conversation to life with Kelly has been such a rewarding way to build on the original series. The more the industry evolves, the more we believe in the power of open, honest dialogue to help us all navigate what's next. We hope today's discussion left you with fresh ideas, new perspectives, or simply a sense that you're part of a larger creative community that's figuring it out together. Be sure to subscribe, share the episode, and pull up a chair next time. There's always a seat waiting for you at the table.